Reef Toots is sponsored by Brightwell Aquatics and Bulk Reef Supply.
Today we're going to take a look at the Philips Coral Care Gen 2. What's going on, guys? Devin from Reef Dudes. Now today we're taking a look at this all new light by Philips. Probably about a year or two ago, a lot of you guys have probably seen the original Coral Care fixture. And now this one is the Gen 2. And you can see it's much more sleeker than the original fixture, which the original one looked fairly industrial, where this one is definitely a lot more compact and has a nice aesthetic to it. Now, one of the big things about this, Philips is a lighting manufacturer, so it's really interesting to see them kind of come out with an aquarium focused light. If you look at the bottom, like this is a big light, and there is a lot of LEDs behind here, and all behind a kind of their own diffusion panel. So I'm actually really kind of curious to see this baby lit up and see what kind of blending and what kind of coverage performance we get out of it. Now the first thing you're going to notice, this is a big light. It measures in at about 18 by 16 by about 2 inches. There is no fan, so that is one huge plus. It is all passive cooling. Now, as a bit of a trade-off for that, this is a lot of heat sink. It weighs in at about 19.2 pounds, so definitely a lot of heft to it. In terms of actually mounting solutions, we have 4 eyelets on the top, so these are kind of all built into the aluminum. And so hanging is probably the easiest way. I also noticed there is a couple screw holes on either side. So there may be some other kind of potential mounting options we can get out of that one. Now to actually control the light, it also has a Gen 2 controller to go along with it. Now this is going to let you control it up to 4 fixtures. So one controller, you can wire up to 4 fixtures to it, and you can do that one over Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or PC USB to configure the light. So let's open it up, hook it up, and give it a test. So inside the box, we got our Philips controller. Looking at the back, we got our USB connection, control 1, 2, 3, 4, and this looks like, so this is our USB, this looks like a 0 to 10 volt port. Now the original light required 220 volt, and it was mainly aimed at the European market. So this guy has a standard North American plug, and it's made to be at 120 volts. So that's the big thing for them to actually releasing into the North American market. So if we look inside, this is our USB, which would probably work with a computer or powering the little controller board. Here we have our 0 to 10 volt, and these will be for our 4 different fixtures. Now it doesn't really matter which way the polarity is on these ones, so we'll just get this plugged in and power this baby up. So nice, easy, tool-free, other than opening up the case. If you want to take these out, you can pop those little things back up. The lid has a little waterproof seal around it. So the light's powered on, we're connected to it. Let's go into the basic scheduler and try out some schedules for it. So a couple different options. We got shallow reef, natural reef, deep reef, and overcast reef. The mixed behavior is sunlight at depth and highlight the fluorescence. Okay, so let's try deep reef. So we'll try this one and start the demo. Now, as is going through the demo in the app, you can see that little bar going across the side of the screen. It tells you where it's at. You know, so we're now about 4 in the morning, everyone's having a nap. Realistically, the coral tentacles are feeding. So as things start to happen, you know, get your cup of coffee, start to wake up, and we'll see what the schedule looks like throughout the day. So lights turn on, ramps up, a little more on the blue spectrum. Now it's pretty white right now. And it's fairly bright, actually, just seeing the kind of slightly bluish cool white tinge on the ceiling right now. And just about time to start dropping off throughout the day. Now we see the light slowly kind of fade down as the evening comes, go back to our blues, nighttime mode, and turns off. So from there, that is kind of the active schedule. Intensity factor, so that would basically be saying, okay, it's running at 100%. So obviously if it's too high a par, we can just tone that down. Acclimation mode, so if we're putting this on the tank for the first time, or you're adding a bunch of new coral higher up in your tank, you can acclimate them in with acclimation mode. Schedule editor, so if you want to adjust the intensity at certain points, you got that option. So now one interesting thing is it gives you the color intensity that it shows. You don't necessarily control the channels, you just control the bluer or whiter of it. So we go all the way to the left, you can see it turns yellow. It's 70% yellow, so it's gonna be all that Bring it all the way to the right, it's gonna be 70% in the blue spectrum. So let's try changing a couple of these points. Like, I just want to see if I put it full blue, what it will look like. Because it is fairly bright on the white end of the spectrum. So we're not going to save this, but we're just going to demo it and see. I guess we have to save it. Custom, sure, custom 2. So blue test. And start demo. Now, generally, white light is a bit better for growing your corals faster, where the blue light, you get a little more color pop from it. So it's a bit of a trade-off on the two. I mean, some people like the natural look, some like the hardcore blue nightclub type of thing. So it really depends on what kind of look you want to go for. That's why I'm just really kind of curious to see if it's heaviest on the blue, what we get out of it. All right, so that's all blue LEDs. Now, it's definitely a big shift from the white, so I don't think you'd want all blue, but it gives you an idea of kind of what we're gonna get out of it. So I'll play with that blending and kind of put it back a little more on the white side. Now I'm gonna see if I can get this one installed today on my tank and give it more of a deeper test, but it really comes down to if I can get to the hardware store and find a nice way to mount it. That way we give it a bit of a par test and go from there. So let's see what we can do and figure out how the heck we're gonna mount this baby. I believe the light spread on the Coral Care fixture is somewhere around the 30 to 36 by around 24. This tank's 36 by 28, so it should actually be fairly close. Now, because we are going to be changing the light fixture, we're going to want to match the par. So I'm just trying to get a bit of an idea of roughly how much par I'm getting in a few spots in the tank, just so we can get it fairly close. So middle of the rackish where the corals are, we're getting around 320, 330. Frag rack up on the top, this is getting around 140. Confucius, or not, the chalice is getting around 230, 250, 243. Now for this, I'm using my Apogee MQ510 par meter, which is tuned for LEDs, so it's a great one if you're running LEDs on your tank. So it's about 220 on the bottom, front of the frag rack, getting around 160. All right, so 250 to 350 in the center. We're getting around 120, 30 on the edges. So it gives us a bit of a reference point so that when we get the new one on, we can match it. So I have a little bit of a unique mounting situation. So I actually got some ready rod and I bent it in a U shape. So I just kind of put it in the vise, bent it, put it in the vise, bent it, made like a little U that will sit over top of this. Now I did put a little bit of just medical tape around it just so it doesn't scratch the bar. And I think this will work. I've been trying to figure out how to mount this, and I think this will be the cleanest kind of solution. And we've got a couple washers that I should not be throwing in the tank. Good thing they're stainless steel. And we'll use that to kind of hang it above it. I've actually realized I can balance the backhand out with some pitcher wire. I just used one of the screws to that mounting hole, and I'll use that to hold up the back of it, just to level it out for now. Yeah, so we're getting about 199, 200 par at the frag rack right now. This is at max. At the chalice, 250. At my frag rack, getting around 80. Back of the tank, getting around 105. Now it's starting to drop off again. So there we go. Okay, finally got live mode so I can see. So most of the par is coming out of the white light. So if I have it all the way down to cool for just the blues, it's only 17 par. So if I do say 100 on the blues, 10 on the whites, basically directly under, we're getting around 40 par. So definitely a lot of your energy is coming out of the whites. Now if I put it up to about 58 par, or 58 on the warmth, that we're getting about 150, 220. And if I put it all to warm, we're getting around 220 par, which I mean is a good place to be, but I definitely do like to see a little bluer. So I'm gonna try and find the happy blend. Alright, so at 62, it's fairly white, and we're getting around 160 par at the frag rack, which is roughly 10-12 inches deep. Alright, so now using the shallow reef mode, it's kind of getting some of the more intense lighting out of it. And I'm getting around anywhere from 200, 220, up here we got 260. So averaging around 200 on the frag rack. If I come up to the edges, we're getting about 90 to 100. The rock flower bin, getting around 70 to 90. If I go to my chalice over here, I'm getting around 200 at the top. If we go down, 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 very bottom sand bed, we're getting around 150. So the one thing that I have learned is most of your par from this fixture is coming from the white channels. If you go to the heavy blue, you definitely lose a bit of par. Now, that being said, for actually growing coral, the whites do work better, but you just lose a bit of that color pop when running this mode. So definitely will have to play with this some more and kind of go through all the settings and stuff and update you guys in the future, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this first look at the Philips Coral Care. As always, if you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.